Hello and welcome, my name is Nidos. This is a base tour of my recently completed Factorio extended Megabase that completed over 220 hours streaming on Twitch, and some benchmarks of this base. Let's have a look. It is operational at 17. If we're being honest, you can see that it flickers between 17 and 18, so it is actually very close to 18,000 science per minute, running over 10 hours constantly at this rate. So this is not just about burning through buffers, this is about complete stability at 18,000 science per minute. Now I'm going to explain sort of the ins and outs of this base, some of the cool things, some of the quirks, some of the decisions, and maybe also some of the errors. Oops, because there have been some of those. As you can see, my updates here are not quite able to keep up at 60/60, but it's actually really close. This is the reason why, main reason why I stopped at this point, because I just am not able to expand any further without just sacrificing my updates. And playing at this rate, not a problem. Playing at higher or at lower updates frame rate is just, it gets a bit annoying. Right, so first let's address the elephant in the room. This modpack is not a vanilla modpack, so you have some pretty damn good productivity modules that each produce 34 productivity. So obviously the numbers in this series are completely inflated compared to what you would see in a vanilla base. The beacons are way better. They have 100% transfer rate. So, and on top of that, so there's a lot of things that are just way out of control. On top of that, we have a productivity. If we look at our bonus for mining, it's, let's just call it, every time we look at it, it's 27 times what the materials in a patch. Let's zoom out and give a look at the base. This is the extent of the base. What I'll be going through is some of the core designs, the train network, logistic train network, showcasing some of the cool things, the dashboard that we started looking at. So those are the things that I want to highlight. Let's also address some of the things that for you may look strange. If you have not watched my Twitch series, I should also mention that I'm starting up a new Twitch series. So no matter when you're watching this one, there is an ongoing Factorio Twitch series ongoing. Yes. So head on over, take a look, and come say hi if nothing else. This is also a great opportunity for you to yell at me in real time if I make mistakes. So this part is part of the Twitch API integration made by the virtual crew. And over here we have a lot of these markers here. This is just a chunk, and if there's a logo in here, that means I can't build, and I have to buy that in order to build it. So it doesn't affect the gameplay as such, it does just limit me in the scaling speed. Now, where should we start? Let's start with the dashboard, because that's kind of where I look at whether the whole base is working as I should. I have down here a alert for anything that goes below a certain threshold. It will throw a warning. As you can see here, rocket control units is now out. Each of these lamps represent one full train of the material available to the train network. So if we look at this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 train loads full of rocket fuel, and if we hover here, we can see that this is 88,000. So it's actually more than 7. It's actually 8. If there's a yellow, or that's not yellow, that's purple-ish, that means there's at least 10 loads available. So for example, plastic, we have 1 million, and each train can take 100,000. So that's, we have even satellites. We have 1,000 satellites, 1,100 satellites in the system. So that's not a problem at all. Rocket control units have now, while I've been chatting away, recovered and is perfectly fine. Over here we have the science. You can see here that there's at least each of the train loads is 100,000. So this one, for example, means that there is more than 500,000 red, purples. I just can't do colors. Purple science in the network. Let's see if we can find it in this overlay here. Yeah, 570,000. So this is how I just at a glance check out if something is working. This gives me an overall health of everything that's operational. And if something is running low, it'll pop up here. This one is a bit too aggressive because space science just dipped now, but it's probably coming back up soon. It's 171,000. It's all right. Let's look at our little hub base. No, let's go out and catch our train. This is our expansion train. What should we look at? We should go to something with green circuits. That's actually not called green circuits, it's called electronic. No, let's go for science. Lab. And this is, while we travel here, we have some special trains. They are faster. They drive at, when they're not holding steady, they are driving at 546.5 kilometers per hour. So they're really fast, and they can also store a hell of a lot of materials. That's also convenient. It's part of the extended mod, or actually this is part of a special mod, since I like the look and feel of Angel's trains. So I got those converted. These are Angel smelting trains. They're not different from normal trains. They just look better. So purely from an aesthetic perspective. Now this is my train network. Let's have a look at it. If not to no one's surprise, I guess. Oh, this is important. You should make sure that you go a bit forward so you don't block anything. There you go. And don't get run over during this. All right, here we have our science facility. Oh, that was just something I was toying with at some point. Here we have our science facility. Each train comes in, unloads. I keep a monitor here. If it's running low, if it drops below. That's really weird. Minus 150. Yeah, okay. There we go. Now, minus 150. Yeah, so that means there's only 50,000 left in the buffer. Then it also highlights that it's running low. But generally, they're coming in. They're coming in at a reasonable speed. You can see the yellow ones. This is Logistics Train Network. If you're curious about how that works and have no clue about it, I have a tutorial on my channel, and do check that out. It's a bit old, but it still checks out like any good Star Wars code would. It's old, but it checks out. You can see here trains are coming in, and they have to come in really fast. They're purple belts. They transport 75 items per second. So this is 300 of each item per second coming in, getting lane balanced and side balanced, going out, going out, going out into our, let's just call it massive science array. Each of these columns here consist of 20 science facilities, and you can see the productivity here for each of these is, what is it? 68% productivity. And we can just go through this like that, this one. And there are, how many are there? There are 5, 15? I don't know how many there are. No, 20 of these. So 20 times 20, we have no idea. 400. Yes, 400 of these, and that equates to 18,000 science, and it's all operational. Every single belt is fully saturated and just always happy. So this is pretty cool. I'm very happy with it. It's pretty massive. You can see that as I run around here, the updates are dropping and the frame rates are dropping as well. There's too much to keep track of in the space, and that's why I can't really scale it. It would be tempting to say, why don't you go for 20,000? Well, 18,000 has the advantage that this is exactly 4 full belts of purple, and I like that. So how is this serviced? Let's look at our trains. Everything is set up with Logistics Train Network, and that means this is my naming convention. For example, we have, let's just go to this one, just for the hell of it, and just have a look at how each of these look. The core principle is that this is a many-to-many network, and this makes it incredibly easy to scale for me, because I can, if I'm running out of steel, for example, then I can put down a few more steel facilities, and then over the next 10, 15, 20 minutes, it'll start catching up again without sort of having to redesign my entire steel outpost, because there are just many. For example, with steel, use that example, steel, if I can spell steel, yeah, I have 8 different facilities producing steel. So that's just a guarantee for having enough. This is a typical facility for me. They work on this pattern. There are 5 stackers, not really needed, but there are. And one of them is the outbound, and then 3 things inbound. Preferably you have only 3 inbounds. Not always I can choose that. There are a few things like flying robot frames that take 4 items in. But aside from this, actually pretty much everything only has 3 items going in. So it goes in, many belts, always belt fed, always trying to get something that is as close to what I need. Here, this is always, in this case, here I have the numbers. I'm aiming to have full belts, and the reason why I want full belts is because they're better for updates. So we have our, here, all of this row here, first we have some ore coming in, and that becomes transformed into plates. This is one of the decisions I made early, that iron and copper will be coming in raw and then transformed on site. The reason why I'm doing this is because this one has 136% productivity. That means even though ore only stacks to 50 while plates stack to 100, this is actually more compressed in the form of copper ore. Not something I would recommend necessarily for a vanilla base, but it's part of this mod pack, so I chose to do this. It means ore's coming in, getting transformed, getting in here. Always, there are lots of these clever little designs because a lot of things are actually inserter constrained. Putting in here and then a full belt so that we get a nice full belt coming out. Times 4. That means each of these outputs producing almost, there are a few clips here and there, but almost 300 red circuits per second. And how many do we have of this? That's not called red circuit, it's called advanced. I have 8 of those. Now let's look at rocket because that's pretty awesome. No, that's satellite. That one. Yeah, I didn't even need this. There. Let's look at how we launch rockets because that's one of the more impressive things in this space. Basically, another thing in terms of our train network. Let me see. Okay, the one thing that I decided early was I did not want any roundabouts. So there are no roundabouts in this space. You have the option to make U-turns, not on the main line, but by going into any location and going out. You can make a U-turn. For example, going in, around, and through one of those that are empty and going back. You can make a U-turn, but never U-turn on the main line. So here we have our facility. As you can see, we have lots of ingredients coming in. This is our satellite production facility coming in. So we have a stockpile of satellites here. We have the low density structures, rocket fuel, rocket control units, all those things. And out here we got tons and tons of stuff coming out. So up here it goes in, goes up to here, 2 lines on either side going in. They have to go into a buffer because I need to make sure that they load up fast enough. I need to load these ones. I need to get this to 100 so that it can launch within 1 minute. In order to do that, I cannot load from a belt because loading from a belt is too slow. So I have to load into a buffer, and the buffer will be then loading in here. So you can see this one is going preparing. This here is counting up to 5. When it reaches 5, then it's ready to launch the next set of rockets. We're going to wait here until it's going. You can see all 18 are completely synchronized. And you can see now that we should be able to see the last of the rocket science coming out. See, the rocket science is empty, and you should see a green flicker of light. There we go. That was a green flicker of light. That sends a signal to the inserters here that now they are allowed to put a satellite in. The satellite is put in synchronously for all 18 launch facilities, and they take off exactly every minute. There we go. And before you're saying, no, they can't launch every minute. Yes, they can. These are better modules, so they can speed up just a bit more, which means that you can do a launch every minute. You can actually do a launch a bit less than a minute because they load a lot faster here. This process is so fast that they can launch every minute. And this is how it's working. This is how it's been flowing for the last 10 hours consistently and awesomely. 51,000 rocket launch. Oh, I almost killed myself. That would have been so embarrassing. Good thing this is for YouTube, so I could always edit it out. So now you wonder how many times during the recording of this has he killed himself? Yeah, that's a good question. One that will never be answered. Let's go look at a green circuit, because green circuit is one of those that I'm most proud of. One of the things as well is these intersections. I have everything made on a grid that fits with the chunks. So that means if you like electric network horn, it doesn't get better than this. Every single thing is a substation on the corners of the chunks. So that's it. I'm only using substations, and they're Mark III substations, so they can reach all over the place. That makes it a lot nicer, and there is no exception to this. Never ever has there been an exception. There are some places where it's annoying that it is like this, but I never make exceptions for it. And that's why the network looks so goddamn awesome, in my humble opinion. I'm really proud of this base, make no mistake. This one is my green circuit base. And I thought when I built it, I was like, wow, that's enough for all of my needs. And yet I now have 6 of those. So it takes 4 lanes of copper, 4 lanes of iron going in and into this teeny tiny little thing that is really, really crammed and really intensively designed. And speaking of intensively designed, this blueprint is my train blueprint. This blueprint is pretty much all of my design blueprints. They are both available on my website, link in the description below. So no need to ask about it. And if you want an access to my save game, well, that is something I reserve for supporters of the channel. That means Patreon supporters of the Captain of Industry, Twitch supporters, Twitch subscribers, or YouTube members. So if you're that, then you have access to the sub-only Discord and can ask there. There's a link from there. Cool. So this one, each of this little teeny tiny one can actually output a full belt of green circuits. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 belts. That's 300, 600, 900, 1200. 1200 green circuits are just being made ready here. And you can see it just comes in. This is all controlled by the logistics train network. It goes from the depot, designs or designates that it wants to get 103,000 green circuits over to blue circuit 5 for whatever reason. Well, because it's needed, of course. And let's head back. So now I bet you're wondering, how do you get the power to fuel all this space? Well, that's unfortunately, you could say, a bit too simple, because I'm just gonna jump out and get run over by a train here. This mod pack, yeah, I made it. This mod pack has some pretty silly solar panels. So these ones produce 61 megawatts each of those. So this teeny tiny location here is producing all of our power. It will actually peak at 62 gigawatts, and I'm using 21 at this moment. So yeah, it's actually. Okay, that's in a 1 second cycle here. Currently, yep, it's just 22,000. That's what it's using here from the. Yeah, it's nighttime. Okay, but it peaks out at 62,000, so 62 gigawatts. So with this mod pack, there is really no need to worry about power. They are very expensive, but in a base such as this, expensive is not really a thing that is relevant anymore. Some of the things that I didn't do, or some of the things that I might regret or have changed along the way. First, I started not having logistics train network. I only added it around episode 45, so that's about after 200 hours. And before that, I did some simply take a train sort of from, let's take this one, which is red circuit. So basically assigning this red circuit to, let's say, a green circuit, or not a green, a blue circuit, or assigning it to what else needs red circuits, anything else, blue signs, for example. And it was okay, but once you have, let's see how many red circuits we have. Yeah, we have 8 of those. Once you have 8 of them, it's just impossible to allocate evenly among 8 origins to 8, or let's say 15 destinations, and making sure that's balanced. So by using logistics train network, I am able to have the system automatically generate. It actually also saved a lot of updates, because I had too many trains running. And if we look at updates, now I'm just F5. I'm just going to give you, because if you're interested in megabases, then these are interesting numbers as well. The main points here are the transport lines, this is the belts, and the entity updates. That's not surprising at all that these are the 2 main culprits. Fluid manager is very low. The reason why it's low is because I don't have nuclear power. That's always a culprit for lots and lots of fluid. Now we have the train here is not that much. We do have a lot of trains, but we don't have a silly amount of trains. I think we've about 100 trains or something, so it's not like a silly amount. But LTN, as you can see here, it's barely taking anything. So not using logistics train network, it has saved us a lot, because it cuts down a lot of the train pathfinding, because there are fewer trains operational in the network. And even though the mod itself takes a tiny bit of updates, then it's of trivial concern. This is our hub. This is just our small base that we built here at the end, where we could just build all the stuff that we need, and also built in copper and iron, but that's about it. And this is just storing it. Everything is being brought in here also with logistics train network as it's needed. such as like iron, copper, all the things, red, green, blue circuits. No productivity module in network. This is also where we see logistics to network strength. It comes up and warns us if something is running low. It's not actually a big problem. It just means that there were two purple science facilities that tried to request it at the same time. I have checked. It is not a concern. And let's see, what else is there in this space to really go through that's of particular interest. Let's look at our mining operations, because that might be something like, hey, how big is that? We're also going to take another look at the production overview at the end, but let's just have a look at this one. Just a random iron facility. Yes, fireworks in the background. So this one, if you look at this, then we go all the way back here. You can see a single mining drill is enough to fill. I mean, two of these can fill a full belt. Isn't that kind of insane? So it's really not, I mean, this one obviously should be transformed, because I could get, with just 2 miners, I can fill a full belt. So I would actually only need 16 miners on this location, and I would be happy. On top of that, if we look at sort of the numbers of this one has 17 million left, but with the productivity, now I'm pretending I can do this in my head. This is actually corresponding to 460 million or that is available at this site because of the productivity gain. Now that's pretty insane. So that means, I mean, once you get to silly numbers of mining productivity like this, you're never going to run out of mining operations again. I only have these 8 ones, and they've been stuck there for a very long time. So mining operations it was something that I've kind of feared that by the time we would scale up, I would have to sort of go out and make new mining facilities all the time. But the thing is, a single miner with a couple of speed modules, they are here. Oh, one thing I should mention, might say, hey, what about pollution? Pollution is disabled. Biters are disappeared. That was something I had to do because they were simply sucking up too much of the updates. So we played the whole thing with biters and with pollution and managed it and worked with it and all that. But at a certain point, it just becomes really trivial, and they just start, by their just pathfinding and movement, they just start eating updates. And there really wasn't any point. It was just like, there, go out, spend an hour killing biters again. Really silly. So that's going to be good. And let's go back to our dashboard to see if how it looks. Rocket control units have recovered a bit while we've been chatting away. Everything else just looks fine. These are just, yeah, I mean, we can't really expect to have more than 300,000 of each science stockpile, so it's fine. Here as well, copper, iron, they are perfectly fine. Stone, all the base materials are fine. And let's look at production, just to give sort of an idea about it. Let's look at 1 hour, then we get, this one, for example, is 1.5 billion green circuits produced. We're producing 18 million per hour. So that's basically the consumption, 300,000 per minute. Yeah, you know, those are kind of silly numbers. They're not really like out of this world, specifically not the iron and copper because of the productivity modules, but stuff like electronic circuits, that's pretty good. Also on the consumption side, well, we have the science is about the most interesting one. Also something like we're using 18.3, consuming 18.3 satellites per minute. That should, if I took these out, we would see another graph. Yeah, that's another very interesting graph, to be honest. Just every minute we use them and then it falls down again. So highly uninteresting, to be honest. There, you can see here how they flicker between 179 and 8. So that's going to be fine. And what else is there? The most silly one, I think, is actually this one. 97,000 rails per minute. I mean, come on. It's not because they're produced to stockpile, because we're using 95,000 per minute. And just let's have a look on the dashboard. And let me see if I can find one. There it is. Here. This is just absolutely insane. This is for purple science, obviously. And yeah, I don't know what to say. I'm not a big fan of the fact that it needs 30 circuits for this. And I wasn't able to do direct insertion. We tried it, but it just didn't work. because then I couldn't do these 12 beacon setups. So this is unfortunately the fact of the matter. I have 4 of these available. And you can see everything has its own locations. Some things, when I build one, I make a nice crisp design, and then I put it out so that I can just scale it either within the same location or onto multiple locations, such as for this one, for example, I have to have 8 lanes, or technically 6 lanes of rails coming in, so I couldn't really build on top of this without that being kind of silly amounts, and I couldn't get that out of the trains anyway. So this one couldn't scale, and anything else, sure, as long as we get the items in here, then it's perfectly fine. Right, I think that's going to be it. I will be, as I said, blueprints are available. Save game is available to support us through my Discord. Feel free to ask questions. This is a modded base, so that is of some consideration if you are feeling like those are very impressive numbers. Yes, they are, but there's also like the fact that it's also modded. I am starting a new series that will be also modded, but the base building itself will be more vanilla, so we can compare it to basically a normal vanilla base. And I think this is a good way to end. So thank you very much for your support throughout this series. If you only or primarily watching my content on YouTube, I strongly encourage you to head on over to Twitch, because we're having a ton of fun and there's a really cool community, and it allows me and you to interact more directly than through the comment section. So with that, thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see you in a future episode, either here on YouTube or on Twitch. Until next time, stay effective.